Hello there. In this video we're going to show you how you can create this simple earring using a range of different 3D printable fonts that we have available for Fluid Designer for 3D printing. The font at the top here, if you press the A on the keyboard using a Hebrew font, you get this shape here. If you press A on the keyboard in an Arabic font, you get this font here. This is a Russian font, again A on the keyboard, and this is a Korean font, again A on the keyboard. So we're going to show you how you can put together this simple earring. So first of all, we've got to start off Fluid Designer for 3D printing. And what do we need to do? Well, first of all, if you can't see any of the pattern fonts on your system, what you may need to do is to click on the Group Library button, or you may need to purchase the fonts and install them on your system. So we're going to use the Arabic Saudi font, and as I've just said, we're going to use this one here, which is the letter A on the keyboard, which generates this font. But as you can see, there's a whole range of Arabic fonts there, or characters I should say. We're also going to use the Korean fonts, and again it's going to be this one, it's the A on the keyboard. We're going to also use a Hebrew font, which is going to be this one, and we're also going to use a Russian font, and we're going to use, again, it's this one here, which was generated pressing the A key on the keyboard. Now we're going to take all of those and we're going to put them into an earring. So I'm just going to go to the earrings folder, and there's a range of different types of earring and different sizes that we could use. Round ones, hexagonal ones, pentagonal. I'm going to use this 20mm triangular earring here, so I'm just going to drag and drop that onto the workspace. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this one around. So if I just go to the main information icon there and change the Z value to 180, that'll just rotate it around so that we're looking at it in the normal view that we would have for an earring. And now I want to add in the fonts to this earring. So we do that in Fluid Designer not by dragging and dropping them, but by appending them. So we're going to add in this Arabic font first of all. This just shows you where the font is, so you can actually look through the fonts, decide which one you're going to use. We're going to use this one here, so it's Patterns, Alphabet Arabic Saudi font, and we're going to use the letter A, and we need to append that. So if we go to File and Append, and we always need to go up through the menu system to look for the Groups folder. All the patterns that are available on your system are in the Groups folder, and we want the Patterns Alphabet Arabic Saudi font folder, and I want Arabic Saudi font A. And when we do append, we always append the object. So it's Arabic Saudi font A, and append that from the library. And so I'm just going to reposition that. Now, as you can see, that's a little bit large at the moment for my earring here. So what I can do with the font highlighted, if I'll just switch on screencast keys here so you can see any key presses I make. If I press the S key on the keyboard, I can go into the scale command, and I can just scale that down slightly. Now what you always have to remember in Fluid Designer, if you scale an object, you need to do Control A and apply the scale, and notice the thickness change very slightly as I did that. And so now I'm just going to reposition that. Now I'm just going to switch off the snap so I can position it so that it's just overlapping at the side. Now I know these bits are not overlapping at the moment, but I'll fix those in a second. So we now need to add in the next character that we're going to use, and so I go to File and Append. Just go up through the menu system until you get to Groups again, and I'm going to add the Hebrew font this time, and again it's Hebrew font A that I'm going to use, and it's always the object that we need to append from the library. So it's Hebrew font A, append that from the library. And again, we could scale this. So if I just click on it, and if I just hit the S key on the keyboard for scale, and if I just move it down there, and so I'm scaling down to about 0.7. You can see that in the toolbar at the top here. So I'll scale it down to about 0.7. I could have typed that, but I'll scale it with the mouse. And remember to do Control A and apply the scale. And again, I'll just position that up like that. We're now going to add in the next one. So it's File and Append. Go up through the menu system. I'm going to add the Korean one this time. So it's Patterns, Korean font. And again, it's A. And it's the object that I'm looking for. So Korean font A. Append that from the library. And again, select it. And I'll just move it over to the left slightly, and I'm going to scale it down. Now this time I'm actually going to type 0.7 as the size, and then press the enter key, and remember to do Control A and apply the scale. And I'm just going to move that one down to there, and again we just want it to overlap at the touching the actual earring itself. And then we're going to add the Russian one, so File and Append. And I'm going to go to Russian fonts, and again it's the Russian font A that I'm going to use. Object, Russian font, append it from the library, and again select it and press S on the keyboard, and I'm going to type 0.7 as the scale this time, and Control A and apply the scale. If you don't apply the scale, you will have problems with 3D printing. Now that font's a little bit too big there, it's probably overlapping a little bit too much, so I'm going to scale that one down a little bit more. Okay, and again remember to do Control A and apply the scale. Now you can play around with this until you get the pattern that you want, but what you've got to remember is if this object's going to print, all these objects do need at some point to overlap. So that there are no loose objects. Now clearly over here with the Arabic font we have got some loose objects, so if we just zoom in, and we can zoom in by scrolling the center mouse button, with the Arabic font highlighted, if I press the tab key on the keyboard, what I can do, if I press if I just select a control point there, I can move it out, and I want to move these until they're just overlapping. Now the circle that's appearing there is the proportional editing circle, so I'm just going to press O on the keyboard to switch off proportional editing. So that means that I can control this a little bit better, or rather differently, and I need to adjust this until we have got some overlap on the side, and then all these objects are actually touching themselves. So I've just that was in edit mode there, so once I've done that, I can press the tab key to come out of edit mode. So there's my earring now, my basic design for the earring, and as you can see that the fonts in the middle are thicker than the earring on the outside, but that's going to be okay, because what we need to do now is we need to join all these objects together. So what I do is I hold down the Shift key, highlight. First of all, I'm going to just highlight the 4 fonts and go to Tools, Object Tools, and join them together. Now if I wanted to change the thickness of those, I can use the fact that we are using sort of parametric smart objects here, and in the Properties panel here, if I click on Show the Curved Data Information, you can see that the thickness of this at the moment is 1:2. Well, if I change it to 1:1, you'll see that it now matches up with my earring. If I'd have actually just joined this object to the earring, it would have changed to that anyway, but you can see what's happening. So I've got the fonts highlighted in the center. If I hold down the Shift key and select the earring itself now, and go to Tools, Object Tools, and Join, all those are now one object which will 3D print. And notice that the cross section of them, I just opened this, is 1:1. Now if we actually wanted to create a pendant here, we could actually thicken this up, make it 3mm thick for example, so you could actually create that as a pendant. What you're probably going to find is that that's a little bit too heavy as an earring, but you can check the weight of this, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to change that back to a thickness of 1 by 1 because I want this to be an earring. I'm not actually going to add in the gems here, but we could using the gem setting bezels, gem settings with prongs, we could actually add in one of these gems here, or we could add in a gem setting using a bezel. But if you want to learn how to do that, I suggest you look at one of the rings videos that we've created. Now to finish this object off, what we want to do is convert it to a mesh first of all. We don't normally recommend doing this in Fluid Designer, but if you're creating earrings, one of the things you need to do is to just check that this is not going to be too heavy. And if I just open up that panel there, you can see that we've got some 3D printing tools. Now this only appears in the toolbox when you've converted this to a mesh. So if you click 3D printing toolbox and click on volume, and if we just move this panel down and look down at the bottom here, you can see the size of this. Now sometimes the size here works perfectly, sometimes it's a little bit odd, and you need to move the decimal place back 9 decimal places. So 3, 6, 9. Now what that's telling me is that that's 0.237 centimeters cubed. It's not 237 million, it's 0.237 centimeters cubed, which equates to about 2.3 grams in weight, which means that that's perfectly acceptable weight for an earring. So the only thing to do now is to export it. So you go to File and Export. You can export it as a wavefront object or as an STL file, and then what you would need to do is to import it into Netfab Basic and check that it's printable. So I'm going to do that. So if we go to File and Export, I'll export it as a wavefront object, export it to the desktop, and I'll just change the name here. So I'm going to call it AAA 20mm triangular earring, and export that object to the desktop. It might just take a little bit of time because of the file size of it, but it will work. So we'll just wait while that exports to the desktop. Just give it a second. My computer's not that fast, so there we are. And if we just now go to Netfab, and if we go to Project and Open, and go to the desktop, we want AAA 20mm triangular earring. We just load that into Netfab Basic, and just run the check in Netfab. It won't be a problem, or very, very rarely. Now we have got a warning triangle there, but if we just click on the repair button, we can see there's a few holes. I mean, I know it says 212, but it's not too bad. If we just run automatic repair and execute it, pretty confident Netfab will repair this. So if we click update, you can see border edges, orientation and holes have all gone down to 0. So we just click apply the repair and remove the old part, and there is our earring now, which we just go to part and export it as a wavefront object. It does say the word repair there, but I tend to ignore that and just write over the original file. So there's the oops, yeah, we've got a few more problems, but again, not to worry, Netfab will fix this. So if we just click optimize, we've got the green tick, so yep, there it is. That's the triangular earring now being saved as an OBJ file, and that is your file that you could send to your 3D printer once it's been through the slicer, of course. So that's it. That's how you can make a 3D printable font earring. Thank you.